welcome back. This is Sarah Smith, and you're listening to Raw Intentions. All right, we are back with another very special episode and a very special guest. If this is your first time listening, welcome to the podcast. So excited that you're here. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. In case this is your first time listening, I'll give you my little elevator pitch just so you know who you're talking to, who you're dealing with. Like I said in the intro, my name is Sarah Smith, Sarah with an H, Smith with a Y. I'm 30 years old, live in Breckenridge, Colorado, from Madison, Alabama, and currently podcasting in Denver, Colorado. If you're watching us on YouTube, which we are very much available on. We've got a whole cutie little studio. When I was in college, I was incredibly broke, as many of us are, and started making handmade jewelry for myself, for my friends, and what started as a little side hustle turned into so much more than that. Just making jewelry out of my college apartment bedroom while I was studying to be a bilingual occupational therapist. Never went on that career path, never used any of my degrees. And here we are 9 years later. It kind of snowballed and grew my senior year of college. And when I graduated, I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to try this full time. And it's been my full-time job ever since, which is so crazy. So my company is called Raw and Rebellious. It's at raw_rebellious on Instagram. We don't do jewelry at all anymore. We started doing like necklaces, layered stuff, rings, earrings, all the things. And now we do apparel, we do hats, we do custom merch, meetups, events, pop-ups, YouTube channel, influencing, and now a podcast. And my favorite part of having this brand and going on this journey is 100% the community. And I think that's what really sets us apart from other businesses and other brands, is having that community piece. And that's what led me to start this podcast. You can follow us also at Raw Intentions Podcast on Instagram. I started it coming up on 3 years ago now, just as a lifeline to our community, to have conversations and connect with you guys. And of course, I love to hear myself talk, or I wouldn't have a podcast. But most importantly, I get to expand my own community, create connections with new people, whether it's someone that I admire from afar or someone that I get to chat with and learn more about on the mic. And that brings us to our very special guest this week. This week, we have Corinna Lander. We became friends through a mutual friend recently. And as soon as I heard her story and chatted with her on the phone, I was like, I have to get you on the podcast. She has such a cool story. Her voice is so soothing. I'm like, you need to record meditations or something. It was like the most calming experience ever. She founded an aura photography business called Ignite Your Aura. She started out as a photographer. She's done weddings, all kinds of things, and started like 10 plus years ago. So she really came into the space early on and has made such waves. She now has locations all over the US. She travels around and does pop-ups and spreads this amazing message, spirituality, this like playful way to see yourself in a new light and learn more about yourself. And her story is so cool. She gives some amazing advice on balance, on finding yourself, on things that are important, on some current mantras that she's got, and her story on how her business got started and where she hopes for it to go. So without further ado, I'm so excited to welcome Corinna Lander, my new friend, to Raw Intentions Podcast. Enjoy.
We go a lot towards like, I need to create more balance. I feel like sometimes that is a recipe for me, is like a recipe for failure.
Interesting. Why?
Because I think life will always throw you out of balance. Like, I think it's like how you respond to it. And I think if like you have a better practice of like checking in with yourself consistently, then like you're always gonna, if you're checking in and you're the priority, you're always going to respond to your needs and where you need to adjust, versus like, and I'm creating more structure and more like discipline and taking care of yourself is like such a powerful thing. And I think that is a part of balance. But I think that like what happens when you have, like, you've got all your ducks in a row and you've created a lot of like consistency and balance, and then like some really big opportunity comes in, right? And then like I think we all of a sudden we're like, yes, right? You're like running to the door. But I think like if we can like in those moments like be able to check in with ourselves more of like, okay, if I'm taking this on, like where am I adjusting to like prioritize myself?
Interesting. That's actually very applicable to me too, because I'm constantly go. So that was one thing. I haven't set like New Year's resolutions yet or anything. I've just been so busy, but just in thinking about what I want to bring in more is, and it's more of a question right now. It's like, how can I make time for myself and get that stillness that I crave and that normalcy, even when I'm go all the time. Because when I have tons of things booked out, like I've got tons of pop-ups, I'm traveling with friends, gonna go ski, like all of these things. Sometimes I future trip and then I forget that just because I have maybe like a few weekends booked out, like through the rest of this month, like all my weekends are already planned out. I still have those weekdays, like, and I kind of forget that sometimes. And then I'm like, oh, it's in my head, I future trip and I'm like, it's already March when it's not. So trying to figure out how I can do that and like find that calmness or that like groundedness, because that typically comes through nature for me and like quieter moments. And I live with 5 girls too, so that's also harder to come by, but it's like in the best way. It's so fun.
That feels super fun.
But I relate to that because I'm always like, oh, I miss my bed, I miss my routine, I miss all these things, but that's just not my reality right now. So it's like, how can I still make those moments for myself?
Totally. I had a moment like similar to what you're sharing over the summer where, you know, especially the last year, I feel like I'm like traveling almost every week or every 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And that came at a time where I was wanting more balance and like wanting more structure. And then all of a sudden it got like a little bit like fun and crazy. Mm-hmm.
Chaotic.
And I think like I've oriented to chaos so much of my life. So like for me to shift that pattern wasn't to totally change everything. It was like to just like actually like be with it and be in it. And I think like with that was actually really fun. Like I started to be like, wow, like, you know, I haven't like been in my bed in 2 weeks, but like I'm having so much fun and I'm enjoying this. Mm-hmm. And I think it comes with like just those like really little subtle spaces that we can like adjust. And so for me, I used to like give myself this practice all the time. If I was like running late to a job and I could watch myself like getting really overwhelmed and stressed out, and when I would arrive, like I would stop myself and have myself just like sit in my car and take 6 breaths. So like even on a day that I'm like rushing and already late, just that reminder that you can slow down for like 30 seconds, and that like what that communication does to yourself is like tells yourself that you're the priority, that you matter, that if you're in like a state of moving and rushing, that like being able to like slow down is accessible. Okay. Right? Even like that 30 seconds is like actually accessible to you.
I like that. And I mean, and it's so doable. Like it's something that you really can just like fit into a moment and kind of come back to yourself.
Totally. And like, I don't know about you, but like I've just been a sensey human my whole life. So to be in like crowds of people, or for you to like live with 5 girls, like I can't imagine. Sounds so fun. And like it's hard to not get lost in the sauce of that. Like the energy of it must be so fun that like I feel like if it were me, I'd be like in that energy all the time. So even just in moments like that of just like closing your eyes and like putting your hand on your heart and just like feeling yourself, just like I think like, you know, the less silly something like that becomes, like I really feel like the more we're able to just be in that connection with ourselves. Yeah. And I think that that can go, I don't know, for me it goes like a long way to just be like, oh yeah, just want to feel you for a second.
Yeah. And be like, okay, I'm good. No, I'm a big, like, that's my safe space is like putting my hands on my heart. I'll typically do both and kind of put pressure. I'll do that like, well, I'll just do one hand if I'm driving, but like I do that all the time. And especially because I find that as I'm getting older, I need more stillness and calmness, where I used to just like thrive in the chaos because I am very extroverted, but I'm finding myself getting a little more overstimulated than I used to. And I think part of that too comes with my job, because I'm constantly on social media. I'm constantly talking to people all day, creating content. And so then, you know, when I take my headphones off or I end work, then I've got like all of these amazing girls around me. And sometimes I have to like take a step back and just like go to my room and like light a candle and have my sunset lamp on and just like kind of decompress. And one thing that I found, like taking a moment for me, comes in the shower. I always shower like before dinner, and we always do dinner together, my roommates and I. And me just like showering, because it's so weird. I like lay down in the shower. I like the feeling of the water on my chest too. And sometimes I'll also like kind of like grab my shoulder or my knees, like if I'm like sitting in the shower, and just kind of like hug myself a little bit. Yeah. And as silly as it sounds, like anything that's silly and all of this like spiritual stuff and anything that makes sense for you, it's like a muscle. Like the more you do it, the more it just feels normal. and whatever feels good for you. You know, you can try literally anything you want. Like no one's watching, no one cares. And that helps me come back to myself a little bit. And I was talking to another friend who she's like a spiritual healer and a medium and stuff. And she was saying that showers are actually super energetically cleansing, which I didn't realize. Like, of course it's cleansing like the dirt off your body, but she said that's something with like the ions and with water and metal that's supposed to be very like spiritually healing, which I loved because I already felt like that was like kind of my reset to go into the night, like stop work, you know, go into the night, hang out with my roommates, read a book, whatever that looks like for me. So it was cool to know that that also had like a spiritual component.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you also just like created that as your own little safe space.
Yeah, I know. It's like when I'm alone, which I love. So that's really nice.
That's awesome. I also love the shower.
I'm obsessed. It's like a whole experience.
Totally. I think as a kid, I would like plug my ears and like put my head under the shower and just like listen to the vibration of the water.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to try that.
It's like the best.
I'm going to try that when I get home.
It's really womb-like though too. Like everything
True.
you're describing sounds a lot like the womb. And I know in a lot of like shamanic practices, if you've ever done like plant medicine ceremonies, like they'll take you into the river and there's like a whole like cleansing.
Interesting.
Thinking of water as like cleansing.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So
I've never done anything like that, but I'm just making little rituals in my house.
I love it.
Which is fun.
It's all like familiar, you know, like I really truly think that we have like so much innate wisdom within us and we're just like remembering. So the fact that you like created that on your own and like a spiritual teacher came to you and said, actually, it's like, this is something that we use like, in our practices. I don't know. I think like we're all just like here remembering like an innate wisdom in ourselves.
I like that.
We've forgotten.
Well, and I think we're all born as such like magical beings. Like children, I think, are just like the most magical of all. Like we're so unaffected by society at that point. So like the imaginary friends, or like when I was little, I used to tell my parents stories of when I used to be a little boy in Africa, and like it was like this whole joke. They like listened and heard me out. But then, you know, later in life, I learned about past lives and stuff. And I've never done like a past life like session or anything. But then I'm like, wait, when I was little, I wonder if I was recounting like my last life. You know, which is crazy. But as a kid, like I just talked about it because it wasn't weird to me. It was just like what it was. And so I like what you said about remembering, because that's another thing that a lot of my spiritual friends have said is like, anyone can do this. Like it's all within you,
right? But
it's about tapping into it. And I think that's what a lot of like with meditation and mindfulness, there's so much with that, especially now, you know, you have to like buy this journal or take this course or take this class or do this thing. And it's like, I think when you break it down, if you can get to a place where you're grounded and like present enough in your mind to just notice as your thoughts pass and like listen to your intuition, I think that's like the root of what it's supposed to be about, because then when you can do that, you can tap into yourself and into other things. And I think that's where most of the power comes from. You know, if you strip all that other stuff away, of course that can help and add more, but I think that's, you know, the most important part.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, totally. You're the creator, you know?
Yeah.
I think that that's something I really love to advocate for, especially in my business and in aura readings, is that really like your felt sense is the most important one. And I think like when people step in for like they do a psychic reading or intuitive reading and like they come out and they are like, she told me that I need to break up with my boyfriend. And it's like, it can be a really intense feeling for someone to tell you that they know more about you than you do. And also like, you know, if we put that into life and like you showed up in middle school and someone treated you in that way, like I think it would feel really jarring.
Yeah, maybe a little invasive.
Super invasive. So, and I think all things like massage practitioners, like you have one that you go to that you just really resonate with, and you have one that just like doesn't totally feel like you. And I think that's really how all of us, when we're going and working with someone that's here to support us, whether it's like physical therapy or an intuitive reading, like being able to feel that connection that they're here to support you in a way that aligns with you is so important. And like I would say someone that is like supporting you at coming back into your own remembering your own, knowing your innate wisdom, because you know you better than me, right?
Yeah.
And that's always going to be true. So like the more we can support each other and remembering that we like have those codes within us, the better.
Well, I think any like spiritual teacher or anyone that's in that space for the right reasons will tell you that. Will try to give you your own tools, you know, because we all have it.
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, sometimes we need a little
nudge. Yeah. Agreed.
But I think like putting yourself in the right spaces with people that you want to be supported by. I read something somewhere, can't exactly remember the right words. I don't know if I agreed with the way they said this, but it was like, all of your friends should be people that you feel are better than you.
Interesting.
Which like, obviously I would never use the word better than you, but I understood what they were trying to say was like people that you look up to, people you like strive or stepping into things that you really
like that you're inspired
respect.
by. Yeah.
And I think like when you do that, you're actually like, you know, allowing yourself to like evolve and rise versus like if we stay in relationships that also like keep us stuck or keep us in patterns that are no longer serving us. And I like the way they shared that, because I was like, yeah, like at this moment in my life really deeply admire the people that I'm closest to. And there was definitely a time in my life where like I was with people that just kind of like kept me stuck in my own victimness or projections. And so to have people that can like hold you accountable is really powerful.
It is. And I know, and I think the same is true in relationships. You talk about, or other people talk about, you know, when you're dating someone or married, you should like almost look up to them, like in not like a you're better than me way, but like, God, I'm so lucky. And like, you're making me better at this or that, or you're showing me my own trauma, or you're healing something within me, you know, like bettering you versus like pulling you back, or it being more of like a caretaker situation, which is situations that I've been in the past too. And I think the same is with friendships. And I was just talking about that yesterday with someone, like how cool it is to look around at your friends and just feel so like proud. And sometimes when I'm in like negative spaces with myself or with work and I'm not feeling like I'm achieving anything, or I'm feeling like I'm in bad patterns, I'll look around and I'll see so many successful people in my life. And it's easy for me to be like, oh, fuck, like they have all this stuff and I don't have it, and seeing that lack. But then I was thinking about it because I went through this recently, like a couple months ago, just like a really hard time with work. And I felt like all my friends were just crushing it. And I'm like, oh my God, like this sucks. Cause on social media, like that's all you see. And I was like, no, maybe this is the universe showing me that it's not that I'm like lacking. It's that like, look what these people are achieving. Like you can also achieve this. And like having that mind switch really helped me a lot, because then I can look to them and feel so proud and be like, no, like I can have this too. It's just not my time right now, which I think is cool.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, like, it's fun to like have people around us that we're proud of, that we look up to, you know, and it gives us like, especially as creatives or entrepreneurs, like it gives us a window into like how we could potentially show up and create differently or do things differently.
Yep.
I also think you never quite know. I think it's really easy to compare, especially like if you're someone that's an entrepreneur. And I think like no one ever quite knows what's really like happening for someone.
Yeah.
You know?
The behind the scenes, you're just seeing the finished product, which I always have to remind myself. I mean, even I was telling you when you got here, when I podcast, I bring 6 different outfits and I change into them throughout the day, even though I'm in the same day. So it looks like I'm recording on different days. Like it's all fake. It's all curated.
Totally. Well, I think like, yeah, and maybe the curation is like a part of what's real too. Like, you know, like we have evolved so much as humans and like how we're doing things. You know, like we will always be like a part of the generation that was like, I don't need to work a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's something really unique to that, and also a little bit hidden. And, you know, I think even for me, like I'm so proud of the business I've created. I love it so much. Not to say that there weren't so many pain points along the way.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that most likely is true for all humans.
Right.
You know, we're like moving through the good, and we're also moving through things that like can be more challenging.
Well, but that's what makes the, finished product so beautiful. It's like, as cliche as it is, it's all about the journey. Because then how would you feel any kind of accomplishment or, learn the lessons that you're supposed to learn along the way if you just skip to the end? Just kind of cool.
And do you feel like, just because you were sharing about the fakeness, to me, I almost feel like I'm grateful for the places that things have seemed fake, because it has pushed me to want to be more in the realness. Like wanting to like be more transparent and share more, because I think that, to have most of my female friends in Denver that I can think of are all entrepreneurs. And so for me to be able to show up and be like really open and honest about my struggles with it, and be really open and honest about the places I'm like so proud of that have worked so well, like I know that actually is like what will support everyone. Yeah,
I would say I agree with that. Like I think that's what's pushed me to be so authentic, or to try to be like as authentic as I can. And I was talking to my YouTube editor, because I just started a YouTube blog, and a few vlogs ago, when I was like in the depths of whatever it was that I was going through, I was like sobbing like in the morning. Like I was just had so much anxiety, and I was vlogging, and it was the first time I've ever like cried on camera, which I was like, this feels weird, but also I felt like I wanted to document it for myself so I could see that like everything's going to be okay, because that's why I journal too, is that I can like look back and like see hard times and like see how I got through it. But also because I'm like, if I can help like anyone from seeing this, either that's, has their own business and is struggling, or is struggling in their life. Like, I don't want them to see my life on Instagram and think that like, oh my God, like she's crushing it. She's living her best life, like, whatever, because it can totally seem like that. Like, I want you to know what I'm going through so that you're not comparing yourself to me. Cause I would love to like inspire or to give advice or to help people feel related to, but I don't ever want to make anyone feel less than or like bad about what they're doing. So that's why I share things, is because I don't want to add to that, because I definitely feel that way sometimes as a consumer of social media.
I know, it's like a beautiful beast, right?
I know it is. It allows us to have our businesses, but it also kind of sucks.
Well, I think that's life will always have that duality.
Yeah, I know.
And like Instagram in this moment is like such a beautiful space for us to explore that. Truly, I would not be able to be doing the things I'm doing if it wasn't for it. And so I have so much gratitude. I also have made a lot of really good friends from it. Like maybe more in like the early days of Instagram, where you're just like had this like bravery to be like, hey. Like, love your stuff. Do you want to hang out?
Yes.
But still friends with those people today. And like, I think that, I don't know, like, I think as humans, like, we need to be challenged. Yeah. Like, really is like things like getting under our skin a little bit. Like, it's all for us. And so I think, like, for me, when like that like tension arises, like it really just like presents a space for me to lean more into. And sometimes that, how can we show up? And because like at the end of the day, like we're all responsible for it, like there's not like, I think as humans, we love to pin it on something else, right? But we're the consumer, just what you buy at the grocery store. And so the more like you participate in it, the more you're a part of it, but the more you rebel against it, the more you decide to show up like in a different space, right? Like that counts. That's a vote. Yeah. So, to what you're saying, I think, I think the more we show up in authenticity and the more we decide that like we're a participant and we can change things, that's really cool. Like that's a really cool opportunity we also have.
Well, and just remembering you have control about how you show up and kind of like what message you're sending to people. Yeah. And what mark you're leaving. That's totally up to you, which I enjoy.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I forgot to introduce you at the beginning. Okay. So I don't even think anyone knows your name yet. Well, I'll introduce you in the intro, but I would love for you to give a little elevator pitch so that everyone can get to know you a little bit, my followers and your own, and talk about your biz, because you've alluded to it a few times, your business.
Okay, elevator pitch.
Woo! Tell us about you.
Okay. My name's Corinna. Names are important.
So important.
Honestly, love my name.
It's a great name.
It's a good name.
Yeah, right? It's a unique name.
It's fun. My nickname growing up was Corey. That's like what my family called me. Which
I love that.
I also love Corey. But no one ever, like first day of school, I'd go into class and they'd all be like, is Corinna here? And
Corinna.
I would like really quickly just divert and being like, you can just call me Corey.
I love that name though, Corey.
Which I also love. But then when
I love a name with a nickname.
Yeah.
Like that's a great.
I know. Best of both worlds.
Totally. Both cool names.
So when I don't know, when I went into business, I just like always introduced myself as Corinna, and it finally stuck. So I love
You're in your Corinna era now.
I'm in my Corinna era.
See, I don't love my name, Sarah. I'm like, my parents couldn't have done any better than that. Just so plain.
My parents were going to name me Amanda.
Interesting.
So my name was going to be Amanda Landa.
Oh.
Like had like a little rhyme to it. But I'm grateful for Corinna. I don't know. I like not sure where it came from, but
I'm obsessed. It's great.
Good job.
Good job. Yay. Good names.
So that's my name, elevator pitch. And then, for the most part, I have worked for myself since I graduated college. And I did my undergrad in photography. Yeah. I went basically like halfway through college, decided I wanted to be an art student instead.
Oh, cool. Where'd you go to college?
Northeastern in Boston.
Oh, is that where you're from?
I'm from Connecticut, so...
Okay, cool.
East Coaster. Are you an East Coaster?
I'm from Alabama.
Whoa, no
I know.
way.
Yeah, Southeast.
I never would have thought that.
I know. My dad's from Northern Ireland and my mom's from New York.
Okay. I can feel the New York. Yeah.
That's more the vibe I get. And I'm Jewish, so I feel like I have more of that in me. But I was like born and raised Alabama. So when I go back home, I can turn the accent back on. I used to have more of an accent, but I don't anymore.
Yeah, you totally sound like you're from New York. That's
funny.
wild.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, so I, right out of college was babysitting, walking dogs, and just like getting my photo business off the ground. I primarily, when I started, was a wedding photographer, weddings and families.
Okay.
So.
And when was this that you started? Like what year?
Maybe 2013,
or how old were you at the time?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm like...
You're like, that was all a blur.
Yeah, such a blur. I think I moved out to LA in like 2013.
Okay, cool.
Which is when I started.
Cool. And you just always knew you're like, I want to work for myself, or?
I think like I can remember that time and like looking for jobs online and putting a resume together. And I just felt, like my goal in life was to go work for National Geographic and be a, photojournalist. And I remember like applying to these jobs that were like an intern in the copy room and it just felt really limiting to me. And also, if I'm being honest, I think there's a lot of fear. I think like the fear of wanting something and like not getting it or not feeling good enough.
Sure.
And so both of my like rebellion and my fear just like took me into like, I can do this for myself.
Okay.
And so I started my own photo business, started shooting weddings, which were, for someone like who wanted to be a photojournalist, like weddings were such a like beautiful space to really like be in that world because there's so many fun, natural moments, and also like they are hectic and chaotic and at the same time like so beautiful and such a gift to be a part of. If you're someone's wedding photographer, you're also the star of the show.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so intimate though.
So intimate.
I have a lot of friends that do weddings.
Yeah. It was so fun. Like I loved it. And then like eventually like from weddings, I pivoted into realizing that like I love the slow, intimate connection of working with someone. And so I really pivoted my business into working with primarily women, and that could be like women in like the spiritual space or female entrepreneurs. But in general, I just had this like really big desire to support women in being in more of an expressive space in their bodies. And so I would do these little cute little, I think back then I called them like goddess ceremonies or photo essence work.
Cool.
Which like when I started, no one was using those words.
Yeah.
Now I feel like we use them everywhere.
Right.
But it was
cool.
Yeah, it was like an edge to step into that because I like wasn't sure how people were going to receive it, and it was so fun. Like it was like so fun to get to like work with women in such an intimate way, and it's amazing when you set a stage for like, this gets to be a space for you that you get to be vulnerable and you get to talk about your edges and we get to work through them together. And like people are so receptive to that.
Yeah.
And I think that like just to what we're talking about, it's like the more you create that space, the more like we feel safe to like really step into it.
Yeah.
So it was fun and it was really playful. Like it allowed me to really get to be my own creative self.
Which that's how would you define yourself as very creative, like naturally?
Yes.
Okay.
When I was growing up, like I either wanted to like do something creative or I just loved people. I was always a little bit like, what's the word? I think I was always rooted for the underdog.
Okay.
You know? So I either like wanted to go into something creative or I wanted to do like work for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And photo was like such a beautiful bridge for me because it gave me both sides. Like I got to be my creative self and I also like got to work with people and like get to know their stories and like have intimate conversations.
Cool.
Yeah. When I was, or after my mom had passed away, maybe it was while my mom was sick, I met this woman on a train who told me that I was a photographer. And at the time I had like only owned a flip phone. Like it wasn't, maybe I'd use like a couple disposable cameras. I like corrected her and I was like, no, I'm not, like, and she just kind of like kept laughing at me and saying like, one day you'll see. And
what?
So,
that's crazy.
I feel like that for me was really like my entry into like my own like connection to myself and spirituality because I had, you know, my mom had worked with psychics and mediums when I was a kid, so I was like not foreign to it. But I think meeting this woman on a train and then, you know, a year and a half later I like took my first photo class and I changed my major completely.
Wow.
And like you really have to like open yourself up to believing like, okay, well, like maybe she was a psychic or maybe I just like needed something to believe in myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it like really allowed me to just like be more in the vulnerability of all of it. Like I think creativity is like one of the most beautiful tools that we can use when we're like going through a challenging time. Because it really allows ourselves to be in more expression. It allows ourselves to like connect more deeply with ourselves.
Yeah. Just, it's an outlet for you. Yeah.
So yeah, that's like, you know, my personal story.
Okay.
I think for me, photography in a lot of ways like really allowed me to like step more fully into who I am and to move through some really hard times.
And it sounds like it was a really spiritual journey for you as well.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Well, and working with people. Like, you know, I would like walk the streets of wherever I was and I would, you know, I don't know if you know Humans of New York.
Yeah.
But kind of similarly, I would just like talk to people on the streets and ask if I could take their photo. And then I would just like get to like know the stories of all of these like humans that I think without the camera, I wouldn't have had the bravery to just like get to know.
So you would kind of do the same thing where you would ask to take their photo and hear their story?
Yeah, and I just would do that in like whatever city I was living in. Or
really?
I traveled
That's
to.
cool. Did you write these anywhere or was it just more for the moment?
Just, you know, like a lot of it started in college for me. So that was more of my photo projects that I'd work on for school. I don't know if I wrote it down.
That's such a cool learning thing, though. I mean, just getting to allow people to talk because so often that's just all people want is just like someone to share with.
Totally.
Which is cool.
Isn't that so beautiful? Like,
yeah.
I really think we're all just like waiting for the invitation a lot of the time. And so like the more we can create a space to like give the invitation.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, that's a big why for this podcast. Is, I mean, I'm so curious naturally. I get to ask questions and like make connections with new people and kind of grow my own community. But it's also cool watching people like tell their story in whatever capacity makes sense or talk about whatever they want and like feel like they have a platform to do that. And same with social media. I don't know if you feel this, but I feel such like people just want connections so deeply and they want friendship. And we're lucky. I mean, it sounds like you've got an amazing community. I feel like I do too, and have surrounded myself with really cool people, and meeting people has never been too difficult for me. I mean, it's definitely like you have to like put yourself out there, but that's why I love like this event that I'm doing this weekend is like, I love being a connector and bringing people together. And I like, if people can walk away with new friendships because it's something that I've done, that's like the coolest thing to me. Like, I love that.
I love that. That's awesome. Isn't that fun? Like,
So fun.
And I think to what you were saying, that it's never been hard for you to meet new people or put yourself out there. And I think so much of that is, you know, the first time you like step on camera or right, there's like an edge to it. And then all of a sudden it starts to feel a lot easier. And I think like so much of life is so similar. It's like, it is really scary to put yourself out there, but then like when you do and like you feel so rewarded by it.
Yeah.
All of a sudden like there's like a little more juice and excitement with it.
Yeah. And so the fact that it's such a gift to feel that way.
Yeah.
So like, why not share that or like try to have other people have that same experience?
Totally.
Because it's such a lucky thing.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So with photography, moving into that more spiritual space, you said that people weren't really using those terms. It was very new on the scene. So how did you move into then creating your own aura photography studio? And I'm curious what that looks like and kind of what it means. I mean, I've seen that on socials from your company and from others, but I honestly have no clue what it entails.
So segue, like started in photography and then ended up in aura photography. And it was something that I had studied in college, like knew about it, always wanted to get it done, got it done, and like 5 seconds later was like, I have to do this.
Yeah. You're like, this is for me. Oh, that's interesting. You learned about it in college.
Yeah. So Carillion photography has actually been around since the 70s.
Okay.
And the really super fun thing about aura photography is it's so new to someone like you and me. But if you were to like meet someone like that went to Woodstock or from the 70s, like they know all about it and they've had their photo taken.
Has like a historical component.
Yeah.
So I like that.
One thing I think is important to mention is that, and I feel like I'm going to go back and forth here, but
that's okay.
So originally the cameras that we work with, they're called the AuraCam 6000.
Oh, that's the AuraCam 6000.
There's not a 5000.
It's just we just went straight to 6000. Yeah. I'm obsessed. That's amazing.
And they were created by a company called Aura Imaging in the 70s. A guy named Guy Coggins created them. And when he originally created them, he created them on old school Polaroid. So like old Fuji Polaroid. And then Polaroid went out of style. When he created them, there was like 100 originally made.
Okay.
And so aura photography like has been around since then. There are some aura photographers that have been, you know, on the scenes, I guess, for a long time. And so a lot of them for years and years were operating on old expired Fuji film.
Oh, okay.
It's like the pull apart film, if you've ever seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is so wild and unique and like so beautiful and such an art. And then we have, like as a culture, have had a resurgence of just Polaroid in general. So we now have the like Instax Y. Or like the mini. And so the original company, Aura Imaging, started remaking the cameras on like new Polaroid film.
Okay.
And so that's why we're in this like really cool era where there's been like this resurgence in aura photography. So just like little history in it that I think is really fun. And definitely eventually it was going to go out of style because we were going to run out of film.
Yeah, and the cameras were just going to break. And we're done.
So I think really cool that like it gets to be, you know, a part of our modern day culture. Like, you know, we have things like astrology and human design and doing an intuitive reading or Reiki session. And to me, I just feel like it's just like another thing that we get to add to the mix. Essentially, like how it works is we have this like funky camera.
Okay.
And when you come in for your session, you're going to sit down and place your hands on bioelectric feedback technology.
Ah.
And so that is measuring mostly your electric output, but also your body temperature and your heart rate. And so I always like joke, especially for like the skeptics, I'm like, it's kind of like a spiritual lie detector. And they really like that.
Yeah.
So the company took 100 of the world-renowned psychics and mediums, and they sort of came together to really look at what the different like frequencies they are working with. So the camera and the technology is measuring your output, and then they have their own configuration for like what that means.
Like to read okay.
Meaning like they're looking at what the frequency of the heart chakra might be, or what the frequency of the root. And so it's all based on the chakra system. We're looking at what chakras in your body you're most activated in and where. And then we have our own little analogy diagram for what sides of the image mean what it means to have like anomalies in your photo. And then we're interpreting it based on that. So that's kind of the science side of it.
Cool.
The side for me that I think is so much more powerful is that it's so playful. And I think that I really believe like we're in such a honestly kind of intense time and also like beautiful time where we're all starting to really like open more up to ourselves. I think culturally like there is just a desire for more connection, more intimacy, more vulnerability. And so I love that like aura photography can be an invitation or a window into that, both like in ourselves and with each other, because it is this really playful experience. Like you're coming in and getting and like and you're like, what's mine gonna be?
Yeah,
you know.
And it's like it's exciting.
It's exciting, and so I think that excitement and that playfulness really takes the edge out of like our fear of maybe knowing ourselves or what it's gonna say. And like, not to say like we do have people that come in and they get nervous, right? Because I think we've lived in a culture that's very I'm good, you're bad,
judgmental.
Yeah. But so quickly does that like edge kind of just like dissipate, because there's like, you know, we say this all the time because people come in and they're like, what's a good aura? What's the best aura?
Yeah, I want 100 A plus aura.
And we're always like, there's no bad and wrong aura. Like, what I always say to everyone is like, it's literally just color.
Yeah.
So like, all color is beautiful.
I like that.
Like, all color is so beautiful to witness, to play with. It's fun. I think now people are starting to be like, oh, that was totally what I thought it would be. Right? Or like, you know, a friend comes in and they're like, oh yeah, she's totally that.
It's like astrology in that way too, you know?
So to me, you know, going from like photography to aura photography, which I'm still like crazy enough to wear both hats.
I was about to say, because you still do also other photography, right?
I'm like, one of my mentors told me this, or used this word once, and I love it. She's like, I'm a slashy. Right? I'm like, always be a slashy photographer / aura photographer. I was doing human design readings for a while. I still do from time to time. I was a
you wear a lot of hats
for a while. But I mean, I'm an Aquarius by nature. Like, I just love learning and I love different communities. And so I've always, every 2 years, I just always need to do something different.
Yeah. And how long have you had your aura business for?
4 years.
Oh, okay. So it's still kind of recent. Well, you said every 2 years you got to do something different. Yeah. So I was like, how long have you had it?
Yeah, I've been doing photography for over 10. And then 4 years ago, I made this shift. And I think that, for me, part of why I did it was because I thought it was so fun and it touched on all the things I loved. But the other side of it was like, I had spent years and years working with people behind the camera that everyone you do a photo session with, probably like 9 out of 10 are all going to have like a level of vulnerability and discomfort. And I think that I loved that with aura photography. It was like, it took so much of the pressure off.
Yeah.
Because I think the more we connect with ourselves and see ourselves, like, the more we just get to deepen into our own beauty, our own worth. And so, like, to be able to offer something that is this, like, short and sweet, playful, colorful experience was like, for me as a photographer, was so exciting because you get to like see so many people come through the door and be like excited to see themselves.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of plays into those both components. Like you said, like as a photographer, I'm sure one thing that was super rewarding and still is showing people like how beautiful they are on camera, or showing them like if they're really nervous about taking a photo, they're like, I don't like how I look in this or that.
Right.
And then being like, actually, like, this is how beautiful you really are. And then being like, whoa, like, how'd you do that? And you're like, you always had it within you. Because even like as just like taking photos of my friends, like I'm not a photographer at all, but I still love capturing my friends in moments that like they really like when they look at the photo, they're like, oh, wait, I love that. Can you send that to me? You know, like that kind of thing.
Totally.
So doing the aura photography, like you said, that level of discomfort, it's like you kind of just show up as yourself. Like there's no mask you can put on. It's a lie detector, like you said. Yeah. So you just are vulnerable and you're just there, and it is showing you like the beauty you had within you, even maybe if you were nervous about like being seen or being read or being vulnerable or having like a bad aura reading. You just exist in it. And then after the fact, I'm sure people are like, oh, this is awesome. Totally. I love this.
Yeah. I mean, I think like all humans we all just want to feel special, and like we all are so special.
Totally.
So I think like what's so fun about aura photography is that no matter how you're coming in, maybe you're excited or there's like a level of vulnerability, the intimacy of that photo, like I think you just leave with this like really special feeling.
Yeah.
And so like anything I can do to support all of us and reminding ourselves of how special we are, like that is like such a gift. And
yeah, that's, I mean, and that sounds like your why, like your mission of why you got into photography in the first place and how you've kind of melded the two together, which is so beautiful.
I love that.
I love that. That's so cool.
Well, it's like goes both ways. You know?
Yeah.
It's such a gift to like hold that space, and it reminds me like how special I am too. So like I love just like the mirror that it gets to be.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And you offer lots of different services with your company, right? I saw online you do tarot, you do some like maybe medium stuff, and
so
astrology and
good question.
Mentorships. I creeped.
Yeah, and I love getting to plug all my people. So,
yeah, plug them all.
So I'm like so fortunate enough to have up to like 15 people that work with Ignite Your Aura.
Cool.
And in that realm, we have astrologers, we have psychic mediums, sound healers, tarot oracle readers. And so what's so fun is like we always get to like add on to an experience, and that's a way that like people that work with us get to showcase more of who they are and their unique gifts. And I'm thinking about your question now.
I think I asked like 20 questions in one, so take your time.
So, I mean, just to kind of plug the team a little bit, I think that part of this business for me has been, that was like my unexpected.
Okay.
You know, like I knew when I started it that I didn't want to do it by myself. Like I had worked as a photographer on my own for so long, and so when I was stepping into something new, I was like, I'm tired of being like the only one.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And so it was so fun get to like hire my first person on, and then from there hire someone else. And so that has been like such a gift that I didn't really know was coming. And so I do feel like we're like a fun big family, and that has been really fun. But also to your point, like to be able to mentor different women that come into this space has been really cool. Like some of them come in wanting to expand in their personal businesses.
Okay.
And so my desire is always to like understand how we can support them best in that. And
right.
Like a lot of times people will come in for an aura session and then they'll work with someone who's, you know, maybe Aubrey, who's an astrologer, and then they'll book like follow-up readings with her individually. So
cool.
So that's
so really it's kind of like a team effort, but then they also each have their own thing going
that way. And then like we get to refer business out to people. Like sometimes people will want to work with us and we might not be exactly in budget for them, but what's fun is then I can be like, well, you could work with Jada, who does tarot and oracle readings.
Cool.
And so that has been like, for me, really fun because I worked as a, entrepreneur for so long, and like I know what it feels like to like be in your own business and like want to expand. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's just like to like step into all of that by yourself is really tough. So to be able to support each other has been really cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's back to like, you said at the beginning you love working with women. I think women supporting women, like you referring other people, you providing mentorships. I mean, I think that's all just like karmatically so good, because people that think that other people's success will hinder their own, I think is just like a wrong way to go about a business or a life in general. How fun is it to collaborate with other people and get to lift other people up and help other people's business? Because in some way the universe is going to bring that right back to you anyway, so it's all going to be, everyone wins, which I love.
I know, right? I think we always, number one, have to believe in ourselves, but I think to be able to do it together and to support each other is always going to be like tenfold versus like thinking I have to do everything by myself.
Yeah, I agree. And same with you craving more community and wanting to work with more people instead of just doing it totally alone. It's so cool that you've kind of brought that to reality and just built this whole team out. Like, that's amazing.
It's fun.
And you have different locations, right? Or you service different cities now?
Yeah, so...
How did that happen? You're exploding, sister.
That was always a goal. And also not like I ever quite knew how it was going to manifest. So we currently have... I spent the last year going back and forth between here and the East Coast. And I trained a really good magical friend out there.
Cool.
All the different kind of facets of the business. So,
and did you just see like a gap out there, like a need, or was it more
I was going through a hard time and sort of needed to I needed an alternate space to be in, and had a lot of really good friends out there. So I just chose it, but I truly think you can do whatever you want wherever you want.
Yeah.
And so I spent a year out there training Sedona, and now she's just like totally taken off. So she services like most of New England. She does a lot in New York City. And then, for her, like I spent enough time training her that now she's the person that's out there training people. So like, she also has her own team that's growing and building that she works with. And then she just manages like all of the East Coast business.
Okay.
And then I'm this year now going just for fun, and like you have to like make it your life, like it has to match you in your life, right?
Right.
So now I'm spending more time in South Carolina because I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, why not?
And so I'm expanding more into that area, and then we have been slowly expanding into the Salt Lake area. And we're just like going out there every few months and starting to like build more. Eventually, like similar to Sedona, there'll be someone in Salt Lake.
As like kind of the point person.
Yeah. And then like we just travel a ton. It's like wild the amount of people that send you an email. We just got one from Yucca Valley. It's like Joshua Tree area.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, dang, like
that's cool.
That's cool that they think we can like come out there.
Yeah. That you're that big.
And I'm also like, sometimes it's hard because like sometimes you get asked really cool locations and you have to also be realistic about things.
Of like, is this going to be a loss for me, or how can I make this work?
Yeah. But it's fun because like I know an aura photographer out there that I get to refer.
Oh, true.
Yeah. I think,
that's cool.
There's always going to be like a mix here, but in general, like I find the community of aura photographers to be really special and really supportive.
I love that. I was going to ask how that felt.
Yeah, I've had, it's both and. I was a photographer for so long, so like I totally get it. It's like a saturated market. You feel competitive with people sometimes, but like the more you lean into like these people are your friends and your colleagues, I think
it's a choice.
Yeah. And so for me, I like have always just tried to like lean into that side of it, and it's fun. Like we get to refer each other work. We get to have like similar to photography, I get to like call friends and be like, what would you do in this situation?
Totally.
We're having like an issue here. Do you have any advice? And I think that is so important.
Yeah, it's just another form of community.
Yeah. Totally.
No, that's cool. And I think that's in any realm, because I was curious when you were talking about the historical aspect of it. One of my friends does fine line tattoos, and she said that it was the community itself of like tattooing in general can be very like gatekeepy and like mad. Like, oh, fine line tattooing isn't real because you didn't do like the traditional style of, of tattooing that I've done my whole life. Like, older people maybe in the industry or people that have been in it a while. So I was curious, with there being that historical aspect, if there's anyone that's like, oh, like you're not using the original thing, like you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or if it's pretty like welcoming.
I do think I can think of some names, like not that I mentioned them. I think some of the older aura photographers, I can definitely feel an energy that they feel around like the newcomers coming in.
Sure.
And to be honest, like I totally get it. Like, like it was a very niche art. There was only like 100 cameras originally made, and a lot of aura photographers at the time would just, because there weren't many, they would like go on tour around the country.
And just kind of cover everywhere.
Yeah. And so I understand that. I mean, I think it's similar to like, say, like a film photographer.
Okay.
Right? Like, there was like an era where we went from film photography to digital. And I think that all of a sudden, like, a lot of film photographers were like put out of work because digital photography, it's like available now, right? It's like faster. There's so much more you can do with it. But then to the same token, like you could say like now there are people that pay like $40,000 for a film photographer to shoot their wedding because it's like such a beautiful,
it's more niche
art, lost art, right? So I think like
it's all cyclical.
Yeah, I really do. And I think that, understanding each other's pain points in anything we do is really important. Because we need to have compassion and understanding. And I also think the more you acknowledge that we're all here to support each other, that energy just gets like amplified back.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it comes back to like, talking about lifting people up and collaborating versus being competitive. That's an obvious choice that you make, but I think it comes back tenfold to you, which is really cool.
I love that.
Well, I'm getting my aura read today, which I'm so amped about. I've never done it before. So the next solo episode I record, I'll talk about it and see what happens. But do you have any plans like for the year? Like anything you're working on within your business or yourself or in the near future that you're looking forward to?
Yeah. So Ariana is our manager here in Denver. She's like a phenomenal human. I will say to anyone, thinking of hiring help in their business, I feel like you always need like the right fit in a person, but it really can change your life.
Yeah, totally. It's hard.
It's hard.
But once you get that right person, it's everything.
It's so important. So in this next year, Ariana and I are sort of like prepping for her to take on a lot more of what's happening in Denver.
Nice.
So that I can spread my seeds a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about that. It feels, we've done it in really slow steps, and there's something about that for me that has felt really good rather than like the urgency of something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about spending more time in South Carolina.
That'll be so fun.
I think
the Sunshine State.
Yeah. I think because of my slashy, this year I'm excited about just more art. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but I just have had this big desire to like create, not from a place of work or business, but just to like get your hands dirty because it's fun and
and just to create for the sake of it, maybe not knowing what's coming and leaning into that. I love that. I'm excited to see what that looks like. And for anyone listening that's thinking about coming to Denver, any of these other places that you have services, do you have like a ideal client or someone that or like a group of people you typically work with or things you get hired out for, like for anyone listening that is maybe considering?
My favorite thing about aura photography is that we've really worked with everyone.
I love that.
Like, it's wild to me how receptive it is.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of private events, like primarily we are a public pop-up business, and then we do private events, meaning people will hire us and buy us out for the night.
Okay.
Or we're like a public event that anyone can show up to.
Like a pop-up, yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, in our pop-ups, I feel like we get such a big diversity of humans of like ages and all ethnicities. And I feel like, I don't know, I just love that. I think the more spaces we create that all feel invited to feels like really important. And then on the private event side, you know, we've worked with like, I say this a lot, like we've worked with like construction companies and lawyers, and we've worked with like, we just did an event with Pinterest, which was like
cool,
huge milestone for us. So, and then of course like intimate parties, like birthday parties or girls' night. I know we have a lot of Galentine's events.
Oh, cute.
Coming up.
I like that.
Yeah. So really anyone. And I think that's what's so cool about it. Like even, you know, boyfriend of someone coming in that's like super nerdy and like kind of skeptical. I feel like we even like sway that person.
Like watching them open up to be like, oh, huh.
They end up being like the most receptive to
yes.
it.
No, I was literally thinking that like if my boyfriend was in town, I would love to drag him with me to get his aura read.
Yeah.
Because I'm opening him up to all that
nice.
Stuff. Yeah. I'm influencing him in that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, I'm stoked to get my own read. So excited we got to sit down and chat. Yeah. And where can everyone find you and your business on Instagram, TikTok, website? Plug yourself.
Yeah.
Give us the plugs.
We are on, I mean, primarily on Instagram. I think we're on all the other things, but I don't know much about them.
Yeah, I know. It's too much. It's so much stuff.
So you can either go to our website, igniteyouraura.com, or you can go to our Instagram, Ignite Your Aura, and both sites will share with you like how to find us or how to find a public event or how to work with us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, everyone go check it out, and I'll let you guys know my experience. And thank you everyone so much for listening. Follow along, and we will chat with you next week. See ya. And that is a wrap on this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Raw Intentions Podcast. Like I said earlier, we drop new episodes every single Thursday on all the platforms, YouTube included. And if you like what you hear, then tell your friends, like, subscribe, comment, all the things as we continue to grow. But thank you so much for listening. Hope you love this episode as much as I did, and have a fabulous weekend. Talk to you next week. Bye.